So leave it to my dumb self to record a full video without turning on my microphone. You can see how this video is going to turn out. Like, it's already a hot mess. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. My name is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to bring you guys my September wrap-up. I am shocked that I'm even making this video, let alone that I'm going to be willing to refilm this video again, because I already filmed this video, but I forgot to turn on my mic, so all that footage is now completely useless. But I have read 59 books in the month of September. I would say I read about 30 of them were 5 out of 5 star reads, 12 were 4-star reads, 10 were 3-star reads, 2 were 1-star reads, and then I had 1-star read. So kind of on the very positive side, which is something very different for me, and something that I feel like that will be a shock to a lot of people, especially one of my good friends, Brie, on BookTube. By the way, you should go check her out. She has a new video out today, I believe a vlog, or whenever this will be posted, go check out her channel. But I do want to say, like, that is very positive for me, because I tend to only rate books like 1 to 3. It's very rare when I give a book a 4 out of 5 stars. 5-star for me is like, I absolutely love this book. I will shove it into anyone's hands to make them read it. That is how much I love this book. So I kind of feel like I've been a little bit too lax with my ratings, and I've been giving books, like, especially I'm giving a lot of 4.5s, but since I round up, I tend to give it the full 5 out of 5 stars, but to each their own. Let's get into the 5 books I want to highlight for you guys in this video. So up first, I have this Tinder Land by William Kent Kruger. And the way I want to pitch this book, I don't want to give you too much of a synopsis for this book, because I feel like a lot of the beauty of the book is kind of going to this a little bit blind, but I will kind of give you a little initial pitch to kind of whet your palate. So essentially, imagine this book is like a modern day retelling of Huckleberry Finn, minus the racial problematic aspects of that original novel. But this one is actually, instead of set in the slavery kind of era, this is set during the Great Depression in America in the Deep South. So there is some racial relations that come into play in this book, but the author handles it incredibly well. So I really love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It is quite the big book, but it is super easy to read. It's super easy to get into, and trust me, by the first 2 or 3 pages, you will be hooked on the story and you will want to continue reading it. So yes, I highly recommend that you guys go check this out. Not enough people are talking about this book, so please read it. So up next, I have Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. If you can see the cover right there. This is essentially, takes place in the 1800s. This is a historical romance, and it follows our main character named Annabelle, who gains entrance into the Oxford University in Britain. The way she kind of gets into this college to study is that there is this group of women called the Women's Suffrage Movement, who actually gives her money to be able to attend this university. But the only caveat to her joining this university is that she kind of has to do like a task set forth by this women's movement to kind of help bring about women's voting rights. So it's a great study of, it's a great book about women empowerment, especially during this time period. And one of her tasks is to help convince a duke to kind of be their ally. So it's kind of, that's why it's called Bringing Down the Duke. This is a great romance book, great tension between the main characters, great dialogue, great writing. And I actually really kind of appreciate the historical aspects that were kind of sprinkled throughout this book. It wasn't too heavy, so if you're worried about that, don't worry about that. It reads like a contemporary, but set back like 100 years ago. So it's very approachable, the language. And if you're someone who hasn't gotten into this genre, this is a good book to kind of get started out with, because it's very easy to read and it's extremely engaging. And then up next, I have There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rose Poole. This is a YA debut novel. It is, I believe, it's the first book in a trilogy. It follows our 5 main characters, and there's this prophecy that one of these characters will either help bring upon the apocalypse and the end of the world, and there'll also be some of these characters who might actually be the ones to help save the world from the apocalypse. And a lot of the stories kind of figuring out where all these characters are going to end up, and seeing how all these characters kind of intertwine with one another. And I would have to say I can see why I think on Goodreads this book is sitting currently at like a 3.9 ish, and I can see why it's getting a little bit lower reviews. And I would have to say, I would have to attribute that because I think the first third of the book is kind of really dense and really hard to get through. So I do kind of see that the first third of the book may be off-putting for a lot of readers, but you really do have to push through because that initial third of the book really kind of sets up the rest of the book. And once you kind of get that world building and kind of get who all of our characters are, then the fun is actually watching these characters interact with each other and seeing how all the different storylines are going to intertwine, and that becomes a really fun aspect of the book, and seeing how these characters go from complete strangers in the beginning to kind of forming relationships between one another in very interesting and very nuanced ways. And I just love our characters in this book. The characters are so amazing. They have so much life to them. They have so much depth to them. They are complicated and they do make mistakes, but oh my goodness, I absolutely love this book. If you are interested in really kind of epic YA fantasy, which I don't think really we have really gotten really epic fantasy in the YA space in a while, especially a story like this that is so complex and so nuanced, and just the world is so fully realized, like, I just love this book so much, and I can't wait to read. Hopefully the sequel comes out next year because I'm dying for the sequel and I can't wait any longer. And yes, I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars as well. Then up next, I wanted to talk about Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is another YA debut. I'm reading a lot of debuts this month. Last month, I don't know how that happened, but the story follows Lou, and she is a witch. I believe it's set during the 18 to 1700s, that type of era, because it definitely has a historical feel to it. And it is because it's not taking place in modern day society, duh. But it follows our main character named Lou. She is a witch. She's a prominent witch in society. And upon stealing some type of artifact, she kind of gets in trouble with one of the witch hunters. And to kind of save face, they force Lou and Reed, who is a witch hunter, to into holy matrimony. I don't know why words are so hard for me to say right now, but yes, in holy matrimony. And the only caveat is that Reed doesn't know that Lou is a witch, but Lou knows that Reed is obviously a witch hunter. And that kind of is the impetus or beginning of our story. And I absolutely love this book. I am shocked that this is YA because usually when it comes to like sex scenes in YA, you tend not to see those. You might see scenes that are suggestive of that and they kind of fade to black, but it's very rare when you actually get those type of scenes in YA novels. Unless you're Sarah J. Maas, and you can really kind of just do whatever you want. But as a whole, you don't really see that too much in YA literature. So I think this book has a little bit more of a cross appeal, especially for readers who kind of consider themselves more interested in new adult stories. But I do have to say, do not go into this book thinking that it's just a YA fantasy. It is a YA romance heavy fantasy. Romance, it takes a huge part of this plot, and it really is the romance between these two characters. And then you kind of get those fantasy elements kind of woven throughout the story, but if you're a type of reader who doesn't like romance in their fantasy, you probably won't like this book because it is a very big part in the narrative. Okay, and then finally I have my final book that I want to talk about. Is actually a trilogy because I kind of cheated and I felt like it might be more interesting to kind of combine them all into one. And this is a Cruel series by K.A. Linde. I'm going to try to remember the order of the books. I believe the first book is named Cruel Money. The second book is named Cruel Fortune, and the third book is named Cruel Legacy. And the way I want to pitch this book is essentially Gossip Girl kind of had a baby with Cruel Intentions, and this is that story. Hence why there's Cruel in the title. I think that was like a dead giveaway. Like, duh, it says Cruel Money, Cruel Fortune, Cruel Legacy, so it kind of makes sense that these two, you guys know what I'm saying. I don't know why I'm trying to explain this so hard to make you guys understand, but yes, that's essentially what the plot of this book is. So you have like a newcomer, I forget the character's name. She kind of gets this job. She's a writer, aspiring writer. She gets this job to watch over this famous person's house, and that famous person's kid is still in this house. and it's about their romance together, and then there's also her kind of coming into this new kind of treacherous world and so on and so forth. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much because this is a series, and I just finished the last book last month in September, which is this wrap up. That's why I'm talking about this, but I highly recommend this book. I gave each of the books 5 out of 5 stars. There is a novella called One More Night, but it's not really necessary in order to understand the rest of the series. So you can read it before the first book, but in my case, I don't recommend that you read the novella at all. It doesn't really add anything to the story. You really just kind of learn the full story of like an incident that happened between the two main characters long in the past. So it kind of sets up a little bit for the first book, but it's not really necessary because you get all the information in the first book anyways. You just don't get all the details, if that makes sense. So I gave each of these books a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. And now this is the part of the video where I try to wrap up everything. So I think overall, September was a really great month for me. Not one of my best. I definitely feel like I read a little bit less, but I think I read more in terms of page count because a lot of these books, like this Tinder Land by William Kent Kruger, this book is at least 500, 400 pages. And then I also read another book called The Chestnut Man by Soren Sylvestrup, and that was around 500 pages. Kingdom of Souls was around 500 pages. There Will Come a Darkness was around 400. So I read a lot of big books. So I'm happy that I was able to get through all these books, but I wasn't able to read as many books as I normally would like to, but that is fine. I'm happy with all the books that I read in September. Please let me know if you have read any of these books, and if you're interested in seeing some of the other books I read during September, you can go to my Goodreads page. I have a whole page called September TBR, where you can see all the books I read and all the star ratings, and then I also post full reviews on Goodreads of all the books. But for the purpose of this video, I thought it would be great to only focus on like 5 or so books and really kind of tell you what my favorite books were for the last month or whatever month I'm doing the wrap up for. But yes, I'm really scatterbrained right now, but I also wanted to shout out Steph. I mentioned Bree earlier in this video, but I also want to shout out Steph. She is my romance soul twin. She reads so many good romances. She has like so many arcs that I'm super jealous of her for having and not sharing with me. So her and Bree kind of have this little ongoing, it's very casual, Friday night-ish live stream where like they have a book that we read, and then it's just kind of like a little low-key discussion. I don't know if it's what you would call it a book club. It's really just kind of a hangout. So you don't really have to read the book in order to join the hangout, because there's a lot of other topics that we talk about. But the book for our next meeting is called Halloween Boo. Never heard of it. I know it's going to be bad. I trusted Bree with the right swipe, and I hated that book, but no shade, no shade. She's probably going to watch this video and go like, Charles, why you gotta be shading me in this video? But I love these two girls. They're amazing. You should definitely go check out their YouTube channels. Bree was already on YouTube, but kind of took a break for her blog. But she is coming back to the YouTube space, and I am so happy to have her back in my subscription feed. But yes, now finally I'm going to end this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye!